I almost said no when my father called. "Your grandfather's coming by tonight," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "It's just a family dinner." I hesitated long enough for him to notice. "You don't have to stay long," he added. "He asked about you. That was what did it." Not my father's invitation, but the weight of my grandfather's name hanging in the silence between us. I hadn't sat at that table in nearly 5 years. Still, I heard myself agree. I arrived just as the food was being set out. My mother barely looked up. "You're late," she said, already rearranging plates. "I came straight from work." I replied. She nodded, as if filing that away for later use. Ashley was already there, scrolling through her phone. "Wow," she said without looking at me. "You look tired." I smiled politely and took the empty chair. Then my grandfather walked in. "Hannah," he said, warmth breaking through the room like a crack in glass. "Come here." He hugged me longer than expected. I felt my mother stiffen behind us. Right after that moment, before anything else could unfold. I need to say this clearly. This story is an original creation by the writing team of the Family Afterlight channel, inspired by the hidden corners of family life and told with the purpose of fostering emotional connection and spreading understanding. Dinner began with small talk that wasn't really small. "You're still living alone?" my father asked. "Yes," I said. "That can't be easy," my mother added quickly. "We worry." My grandfather listened, quietly, too quietly. As the plates were passed, he looked at me again. "You're eating, right?" he asked. "You shouldn't push yourself so hard." I nodded. Something in his tone made my chest tighten. If you're listening to this and something already feels familiar, stay with me. Some truths don't reveal themselves all at once. They surface slowly, at ordinary tables, during dinners that were never meant to change everything. The food was set down with a precision that felt rehearsed. My mother adjusted the serving bowls twice before sitting. "We didn't know what you liked anymore," she said, smiling too carefully. "So we kept it simple." Simple was not the word I would have chosen. My grandfather took his seat at the head of the table. "You've changed things around," he said mildly. My father answered before my mother could. "Just small updates." "You know how it is." I knew how it was too well. Ashley finally put her phone down. "Dad worked really hard for all this," she said, glancing at me. "You should be proud." "I am," my father replied quickly. His eyes flicked toward me, then away. I reached for my water and noticed the new countertop, the appliances that still looked unused, the kind people buy when they want visitors to notice. My mother followed my gaze. "We got a good deal," she said. "Timing worked out." I nodded, though my hands had gone cold. A year ago, I had called her in the middle of the afternoon, my voice shaking as I explained that my rent was going up again. I remembered her sigh clearly. "We just don't have anything extra." "Hannah," she had said then, "you'll have to figure it out." Now she was passing plates like none of that had ever happened. My grandfather picked up his fork and paused. "You leased a new car too, didn't you?" My father smiled. "Just something reliable." Ashley laughed. "Reliable and quiet. Unlike Hannah's old place." She leaned back in her chair. "Remember how you complained about the noise I hadn't complained?" I had mentioned it once, casually, during a call I thought was safe. I managed. I said. My mother gave me a look that landed somewhere between pity and warning. "You always say that." The conversation kept circling like that. Every sentence felt like it was meant to land on me without quite touching. "You look thinner. You must be stressed. You never ask for help." My grandfather watched all of it. When he spoke, the room adjusted itself to him. "You've all done well," he said slowly. "Better than I expected." No one answered right away. I set my fork down. I hadn't eaten more than a few bites, but no one commented on that. They were too busy performing a version of concern that left no room for questions. If you've ever sat at a table where the truth was carefully avoided, you know the feeling. It presses against you, waiting. And when it finally comes out, it never sounds the way you imagined. The plates were half cleared when my grandfather spoke again. "Hannah," he said, gently, "are you settled where you're living now?" My father answered first. "She's managing." "I didn't ask you," my grandfather said, without raising his voice. I met his eyes. "I'm fine," I said. It was the answer I'd learned to give years ago. Short, safe. He nodded, but didn't look convinced. "Living alone isn't easy," he said, "especially when you're carrying everything yourself." My mother reached for her napkin. "She's always been independent." "That's true," he said. Then he added, almost casually, "That's why I made sure the rent wouldn't be a burden." The room shifted. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "What do you mean?" My grandfather frowned slightly. "The monthly support," he said. "I've been sending $1,850 every month so you could focus on getting your footing." Silence dropped hard and immediate. I felt heat rush to my face. "I don't understand." I said, "I pay my rent myself." Ashley let out a short laugh, then stopped when no one joined her. My father cleared his throat. "Dad, this isn't the time." "What isn't?" my grandfather asked. My mother leaned forward, her voice soft. "Hannah gets overwhelmed easily. We didn't want to confuse her with details." I stared at her. "What details? We've been handling things," my father said, "just like you asked." My grandfather's eyes didn't leave my face. "Handling what? The money?" my mother said quickly. "For her." "We thought that was obvious." "It isn't," I said. My voice sounded thin to my own ears. "No one ever told me about any money." Ashley crossed her arms. "You forget things," she said. "You always have." I looked at her. "I forget being able to pay rent." My father cut in, sharper now. "Hannah, don't do this. Do what I said." My grandfather set his fork down. The sound was quiet, but it landed like a signal. "How long?" he asked slowly. "Has this arrangement been in place?" My mother hesitated. "Just a beat. A while." "How long?" he repeated. "Almost 5 years." My father said. I felt my chest tighten. 5 years. The word echoed, heavy and unreal. "I've never received $1,850 from anyone," I said. "Not once." My mother reached for my hand and missed. "You were going through a lot. We didn't think you were in a position to manage it. That wasn't your decision." My grandfather said. My father's jaw clenched. "Dad, we did what we thought was best." My grandfather finally looked away from me and at them. "You thought," he said. "Or you decided no one answered. If this story is touching something raw for you, don't turn away yet. Some moments sound quiet when they happen. They only become loud after you realize how much they've already taken from you." My father pushed his chair back slightly, just enough to assert himself without standing. "Hannah doesn't handle stress well," he said. "You know that. I'm sitting right here," I said. He nodded at me without looking. "That's what I mean." My mother folded her hands together as if in prayer. "We were trying to protect you. You've always been sensitive. You spiral when too much responsibility lands on you at once. I've been paying my rent on time for years." I said, "I've been working 2 jobs." "You don't need to exaggerate," she replied gently. "No one is accusing you of being irresponsible. We're saying you needed support. Support I didn't know existed." I said. Ashley leaned forward, her voice sharp with impatience. "You're acting like this is some kind of betrayal." "It wasn't. Mom and Dad were helping you. By keeping it from me," I said. She rolled her eyes. "You forget things. You always have. Remember when you missed your own doctor's appointment and blamed everyone else?" My stomach dropped. "That appointment was canceled." I said. "I showed you the email." She shrugged. "That's not how I remember it." My father seized on that. See, this is exactly what we're talking about. Hannah remembers things differently. My grandfather raised a hand. Differently does not mean incorrectly. My mother's eyes filled instantly. Dad, please. You weren't there. You didn't see her at her worst. I turned to her. You mean when I asked for help and you told me to handle it myself? She flinched. You were emotional. I was desperate. That's not fair, she said, her voice shaking. We lost sleep worrying about you. Then why didn't you answer my calls? I said. Ashley scoffed. Because every call was a crisis. You drain people. My father nodded. Ashley's right. We couldn't keep enabling that. I felt something inside me tilt, slow and dangerous. So taking money meant for me was not enabling. My mother shook her head quickly. We didn't take it. We managed it. For 5 years. I said, without telling me. You weren't in a place to decide, my father said. My grandfather's chair scraped softly against the floor as he leaned forward. Who decided she wasn't? There was a pause long enough to hurt. My mother spoke first. We're her parents. And she is an adult. He replied. Ashley crossed her arms tighter. She still needed supervision. I looked at her. You knew about the money. She didn't deny it. Someone had to. My hands were shaking now. I pressed them together under the table. You all keep talking about me like I'm not here. My father sighed, tired and practiced. Hannah, this is exactly why we didn't involve you. My grandfather turned to me. Is that true? I opened my mouth, then stopped. For a moment, their voices echoed so loudly that my own felt distant, unreliable. My mother watched me closely. Take your time, she said softly. You've been confused before. The word settled on me like a weight. Confused, unstable, unreliable. I breathed in slowly. I know what I remember, I said, and I know what I've lived. No one interrupted me this time. My grandfather nodded once, deliberately. Then we're going to listen. I didn't plan to say it all at once. The words came because no one stopped me. It was February, I said. You told me to pack a bag. My father shook his head immediately. That's not true. You said I was unstable. I continued. You said the house wasn't safe for me. My mother pressed her lips together. You were having episodes. I was crying, I said. There's a difference. Ashley laughed under her breath. You always twist things. I was wearing a coat, I said. I remember that because it wasn't enough. My grandfather leaned closer. Go on. I asked to stay until morning. I said, just until it was light. My mother closed her eyes. You're mixing things up. You stood by the door. I said, you told me I couldn't keep doing this to the family. My father's voice rose. We told you to calm down. You told me to leave. I said, you locked the door behind me. Ashley pushed her chair back. That's dramatic. I walked 3 blocks. I said, my hands were numb. My mother whispered, you never said this before. You never asked. I said. I took a breath that felt like it scraped something raw inside my chest. I went to Megan's place. She let me sleep on her couch. Her parents were awake because it was late. They didn't understand why I was there. My father looked away. They asked what happened. I said. I told them my parents needed space. Ashley scoffed. So you lied. I protected you. I said. I protected all of you. My grandfather's voice was steady. How long did you stay? 2 weeks, I said. Until I found an apartment I could afford. My mother shook her head. We didn't know where you were. I called. I said. You didn't answer. The room was silent enough that I could hear my own breathing. I worked days at an office. I said. At night. I took overnight shifts at a Waffle House. I smelled like grease all the time. I slept in 2-hour stretches. Ashley folded her arms tighter. That was your choice. I chose to survive, I said, because I didn't have a safety net. My father rubbed his face. You make it sound worse than it was. I counted coins, I said. I skipped meals. I delayed refilling prescriptions because rent came first. My mother's voice broke. You could have come home. You told me not to, I said. My grandfather exhaled slowly. While this was happening, he said, You were telling me she was sick and needed support. No one responded. I was paying for her stability. He continued, and she was working herself into the ground. Ashley muttered, She's exaggerating. I turned to her. You went to the beach that summer. You posted photos every day. She looked at me sharply. You wouldn't have been able to travel. I couldn't afford groceries. I said, That's why. My father finally spoke. Quieter now. We were under pressure too. You remodeled the kitchen, I said. You leased a new car. My mother started to cry. That's not fair. I begged for help. I said. You said you had nothing. My hands were shaking openly now. I didn't hide them. I didn't forget. I said. I carried it every day. No one interrupted. Not this time. My grandfather placed both hands flat on the table. Enough, he said. The word didn't end the pain. It changed who was allowed to deny it. My grandfather didn't raise his voice when he spoke again. He didn't need to. I asked my accountant to prepare something. He said, I hoped I wouldn't have to look at it. My father straightened. Dad, this is unnecessary. My grandfather reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. What was unnecessary, he said calmly, was letting this go on. My mother wiped her eyes. You don't understand how hard this has been for us. I understand numbers, he replied. They tell the truth when people won't. He tapped the screen once and turned it so we could all see. For 56 consecutive months, he said. I transferred $1,850. My breath caught. Every transfer went into the same joint account, he continued. The memo line reads, Hannah Housing Support. My father leaned forward. That doesn't mean my grandfather lifted a finger. Let me finish. He scrolled slowly. Within days of each deposit, there are payments, credit card balances, home improvement invoices, lease payments, travel charges, my mother whispered. We needed flexibility. There is not a single transfer to Hannah, he said. Not once. The room felt smaller with every word. That totals $103,600, he said, all intended for her survival. Ashley's voice came out sharp. You can't prove it wasn't used for her. My grandfather looked at her. Then show me where it was. She didn't answer. My father tried again. Dad, we never meant to hurt her. You meant to control her. My grandfather said, You told me she was unstable. You told her she was on her own. My mother shook her head. We were scared. You were comfortable, he replied. I stared at the screen, the numbers blurring. 56 months. While I counted coins. While I worked through the night. While I apologized for needing help. This wasn't a mistake, my grandfather said. It was a system. My father's shoulders sagged. I'm sorry. My grandfather finally looked at him. No, he said. You're sorry this is visible. He turned to me. Hannah, I need to ask you something. I swallowed. Okay. This doesn't have to stay here, he said. But it can't disappear either. My mother reached toward me. Please. My grandfather stood, slow and deliberate. We're leaving, he said. This conversation is over. He placed a hand on my shoulder. It was steady. As we walked toward the door, no one followed us. No one stopped us. The numbers stayed behind, sitting where denial used to be. We didn't speak on the drive. My grandfather kept both hands on the wheel, his posture unchanged, as if he were holding something fragile in place. When we reached his house, He turned off the engine and stayed there for a moment longer. "I should have checked sooner," he said. "That's on me." I shook my head. "You believed them. I did too." He nodded once, then got out of the car. Inside, he poured us both tea and gestured for me to sit. The quiet felt different here. It didn't press down on me. "What happens next?" he said, taking the chair across from me. "Has to be your decision." I wrapped my hands around the cup. "You think this is criminal?" "It is," he said. "This wasn't family help gone wrong. It was misappropriation. Fraud." The word landed heavily. "They'll say it was for my own good," I said. "They'll say I agreed. They can say whatever they want," he replied. "Evidence doesn't argue." I looked down. "I don't want revenge." He studied me. "Good. That isn't what this is." A knock sounded at the door before I could respond. My grandfather stood and opened it. A man stepped inside, briefcase in hand, eyes alert but respectful. "This is Daniel Cooper," my grandfather said. "He's my attorney." Cooper nodded to me. "Hannah." My grandfather didn't sit back down. "I want you to explain the options." Cooper opened the briefcase and laid out a few papers. "If we proceed," he said, "this will be formal. Your parents will be notified. There will be depositions. They will likely challenge your credibility." I felt my chest tighten. "Because of my mental health?" "Yes," he said plainly. "They'll try to frame this as care, not theft." My grandfather's voice hardened. "And you'll shut that down." "With records and witnesses." Cooper replied. "Which we have." My phone buzzed on the table. My mother's name lit up the screen. I didn't answer. "They'll pressure you." Cooper continued. "They'll ask you to stop this." I exhaled slowly. "They already have." My grandfather turned to me. "You can walk away," he said. "I won't push." I looked at him. "If I do, they'll keep telling the same story. About me. About what happened." He waited. "I'm tired of carrying it," I said. "I didn't choose this, but I won't hide it anymore." My grandfather nodded. "Then we move forward." Cooper gathered the papers. "I'll begin immediately." As he left, my phone buzzed again. This time, a message. "We can talk. Please, don't do this." I turned the screen face down. My grandfather placed his hand over mine. "This isn't about punishment," he said. "It's about truth." I sat back, the weight of the decision settling fully into place. For the first time, it felt like something I had chosen, not something done to me. The courtroom was quieter than my parents' dining room had ever been. When my father sat, his shoulders folded inward, as if the suit didn't belong to him anymore. My mother kept her eyes on the table, hands clasped too tightly to look calm. Ashley sat between them, rigid, her confidence nowhere in sight. Daniel Cooper stood when the judge entered. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "For 56 months, he said, funds were transferred for Hannah Miller's housing support. Not $1 reached her." My father's attorney cleared his throat. "This was family assistance. Decisions were made in good faith." Cooper turned slightly. "Good faith does not explain why the recipient was never informed. Good faith does not explain why the money paid for a remodeled kitchen, leased vehicles, and personal travel." My mother leaned forward. "We were worried about her stability." Cooper nodded once. "Concern does not grant ownership." The judge looked at my parents. "Did you ever tell your daughter about these funds?" My father hesitated. "We didn't think she was ready." "Answer the question." The judge said. "No," he said. Ashley spoke suddenly. "She wouldn't have managed it well." The judge's gaze shifted. "You are not a party to this decision." I felt my heartbeat slow as the evidence unfolded. Statements, timelines, deposits followed by withdrawals. The pattern was unmistakable. When it was over, the judge folded his hands. "The court finds that the defendants unlawfully misappropriated funds intended for the plaintiff." My mother began to cry. It sounded practiced, even now. The defendants are ordered to repay $103,600, the judge continued, along with interest accrued for delayed restitution. The gavel came down once. My father lowered his head. My mother reached for him and missed. Ashley stared straight ahead, unmoving. Outside the courtroom, my phone rang. I didn't answer. Daniel Cooper closed his folder. It's done. My grandfather stood beside me, his presence steady. You did well, he said. I exhaled. The sound felt unfamiliar, like I had been holding it for years. As we walked down the hall, my mother called my name. I didn't turn. The echo of her voice faded behind us, replaced by the quiet certainty of something ending the way it was supposed to. The money arrived quietly. $103,600, plus interest, settled into my account without ceremony. I stared at the numbers once, then closed the screen. My grandfather watched me from across the table. You don't look relieved, he said. I am. I replied, just not the way people expect. He nodded. That makes sense. We sat with our tea cooling between us. After a moment, he spoke again. If you want, I can keep helping. I don't want you to struggle anymore. I met his eyes. I won't, I said. And not because of the money. He waited. I used part of it to stabilize my business. I continued. The rest stays where it is. Quiet. Untouched. I paused. I don't want my life to be built on someone else stepping in at the last minute. A small smile crossed his face. You've already stepped in for yourself. Later. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother appeared, then disappeared. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Do you ever think about them? My grandfather asked. Sometimes, I said, but not the way I used to. I stood and walked to the window, the evening settling into something gentle. What they lost wasn't the house or the car, I said. It was the version of me they thought they controlled. He joined me, and what did you gain? I turned back to him. My name, my choices, my voice. If this story feels close to home, stay with it. Share it with someone who might need to hear that quiet strength can still change everything. Stories like this don't end with noise. They end with peace, earned one honest decision at a time. My grandfather lifted his cup. To moving forward, he said. I lifted mine. To living without permission.